it's like this battle between me and the chat, and it's like if they get out of line, I punish them. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a Tim Pool clip right here for you. So there you go. So,
play a Tim Pool music video. Really punish them. Yeah. Have you noticed that a lot of these alternate media, but still sort of mainstreamish media people are starting to lose a little bit of credibility lately?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we're gonna get into it. It's really funny. The chat's really excited. I'm over in the chat. We're like, this is the Tim Pool takedown episode, folks, and they're like, we'll believe it when we see it. And this is like this ongoing bit, like especially when I host the show. It's like this battle between me and the chat, and it's like if they get out of line, I punish them. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a Tim Pool clip right here for you. So there you go. So,
play a Tim Pool music video. Really punish them. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll close out the show with a Tim Pool music video. You guys behave, or this show will end with a Tim Pool music video.
Oh my God.
Okay, you guys behave in the chat. You hear me? Okay. But no, this is the Tim Pool takedown episode. We got a series of these people losing credibility. Nice segue, Paul. And we got that's basically the first block. We got this whole situation. Did you watch this?
Yes, I wanted to talk about this with you.
Yeah, so maybe we'll cover this because I haven't listened to it. And
okay.
I've listened to commentary on it, so I got the gist of what's going on, but I haven't actually listened to the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith debate on Joe Rogan. But we'll get the gist of it here. But let's jump into this first block. We got Quartering talking about this debate. We got liberal Hivemind talking about how Tim Pool, we're coming right out the gate with it, guys. Tim Pool has lost his credibility. And then we got some Crossfire Hurricane declassification from Viva Frei. So let's check it out.
So Douglas K. Murray came in hot with this.
Douglas, can I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
Since the war in Israel began and since the war in Ukraine began, you've had quite a lot of people who are very against both in different ways.
Yes.
Do you think you've had enough people on who are supportive of either war?
I don't know that word enough, if that's a good word.
Let's say enough people who are on the side of Israel instead of wild critics.
Well, I've had a few. I mean, I believe God Sad is on the side of Israel, for sure. Jordan is on the side of Israel.
Mike Baker, Coleman Hughes.
Yeah.
Coleman did it for like 20 minutes, so it wasn't why he was here.
No.
So he's upset that he doesn't have enough pro-war people on.
And this particular Tim Pool situation, yeah, it's bad. It's real bad. Tim just went on a rant on his podcast defending Carmelo Anthony. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This has got to be one of the dumbest arguments I think I've ever witnessed. And he makes it so confidently, too. Let me show you guys Tim Pool's take on the Carmelo Anthony situation. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so just take a look at this.
For one where he says, nothing matters but this. He was at a school event at the wrong team's tent with a knife. He clearly chose murder than to walk away, cut and dry here. Nope, wrong. Imagine you are invited to a party at someone else's house and you are legally carrying a firearm. And then a fight breaks out and or like an altercation breaks out between you and some guy and, there's drinking involved or whatever. I'm not trying to make a one-for-one scenario. I'm trying to create a potential scenario separate from this one with similarities. You go to a party. Let's say you go to a party. And some guy starts saying stuff like, yo, man, get out of here. And you're like, I can do what I want. I was invited to the party. Verbal altercation escalates. And then the dude, you're standing there and you pull your sweater back and you've got a gun. And you put your hand up and say, don't come close to me, bro. I'm warning you right now. Do not come close. Do not take another step. Then the guy grabs your arm and makes a move. So you draw your weapon and you use it. Okay, make the argument. You have no right to defend yourself when you're being attacked by a guy. Make the argument. By all means, go ahead and do so. I ain't going to do it. I don't know the circumstances. You can argue that you're in a place you're not supposed to be. You can argue it's that guy's house and it doesn't matter. A guy can invite you into your neighbor could be like, come on over, brother. And then if he gets physical with you, you can defend yourself.
Let's start with Operation Crossfire Hurricane, as legacy propaganda media is reporting on it. For those of you who didn't know, there was a recent disclosure of a slew of what had hitherto been two classified documents relating to Operation Crossfire Hurricane, Russiagate hoax. If you haven't, I'm not even going into summarizing what the Russiagate hoax was. Kevin Kleinsmith, FBI attorney, falsifying evidence to submit to a secret FISA court to obtain a spy warrant on Carter Page that they then used to go spy on Donald Trump. Christopher Steele producing the Steele dossier, which the FBI knew was bunk bullcrap. That Steele dossier was given to the FBI by Michael Sussman in a meeting where Sussman then lied to the FBI and said he was not acting for or on behalf of his client, Hillary Clinton or the DNC, except he actually billed Hillary Clinton and the DNC for the meeting in which he fed it to the the FBI the Steele dossier that he knew was bunk so that the FBI could then leak it to the Yahoo News, who would then publish it, and then the FBI would use that publication as a basis to obtain a secret, unlawful FISA spy warrant on the Trump campaign at large. That's it in a nutshell, if you don't know.
That was so funny, dude.
What a beautiful soprano voice he has.
Oh boy. Okay, that was for the chat. I love you guys. You guys are so much fun. We couldn't do the show without it. Fucking hilarious. So I'm telling Colby, I'm declaring war on the chat here. Here we go. You guys ready? Here we go.
That's great. And that's Tim Pool talking about that recent stabbing. And I really thought that piece was actually going to be about him meeting with Netanyahu in their little secret meeting, and that the position he was taking about defending yourself was him being like, this is the Zionist position that I agree with, where you can defend yourself by attacking somebody else and you're still the victim. But it turned out it was about last week's story of the what's his name, Carmelo.
Well, there's Austin Metcalf is the gentleman that was killed, and then Carmelo Anthony, which isn't there a famous basketball player named Carmelo Anthony too? I think. And so it's like it's one of those things where you type it in and you don't get the information you're looking for. Anyway, so yeah, that was a crazy ass story. I don't think we have anything other than that coverage of it, but that I guess Luke mentioned it a little bit, but that's being used as a wedge to kind of just
it's another one of those divide and conquer stories. And yeah, the Crossfire Hurricane thing, I mean, if you still believe in the Russiagate hoax at this point, then it's the TDS thing, because love or hate Trump, the operation to try and just like bog him down in that quagmire was definitely an operation by multiple different people in the deep state. And I think the most interesting thing out of that whole segment was Dave Smith and Doug Murray, because a lot of people think Doug Murray is this pro free speech guy who's shutting down the leftists, and there's been all these debates and stuff with him, and he's out promoting his new book. But he also received like a pro-Zionist award from Israel, from the Israeli government. And so I think his perspective might be just a little biased, right? And so I'm not sure if there's a video out still, but either Michael Malice or someone else did an episode looking at Dave Smith talking with Douglas Murray and doing a count the fallacies, because Douglas Murray keeps appealing to authority. He keeps appealing to ridicule. He keeps using ad hominems like, hey man, it's weird that you like free speech and like want to talk about things that you feel like talking about, when only the experts who completely failed us during COVID, they're the only ones who should be able to talk about these subjects. So yeah, I almost feel like it was meant to be a Zionist propaganda job from Douglas Murray, thinking he's going to go in there and just clean up and turn Joe Rogan to the dark side. And instead, he just got dominated by Dave Smith, just making simple refutations of his highly fallacious logic. And you'd expect more from Douglas Murray, but I guess he just wasn't aware of the fallacies he was employing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not, or there's something else going on. And one of the things that I think it was Jeremy was talking about. To support. And Douglas Murray was supportive of Tommy. I'm assuming he's talking about Tommy Robinson, maybe. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming, and that makes sense because that guy's a super pro Zionist guy as well. So.
Yeah, this is what's I think you're seeing. Just like on the left side, there's sort of the corporate Democrats who are backed by certain money and they're pro-Zionist, and then you've got the more progressives who are anti-Zionist because they actually care about the Palestinian people. And then on the right side, you've got more pro-hardcore Zionists, a lot of Christian Zionists, and then you have the sensible anti-war right, who are mostly libertarian, but also, there's some MAGA people in there who are against war as well. And all those people are like, they're into America first, so they're like, what national interest do we have by supporting Israel so blindly when before Israel was created, we didn't have any problems in the Middle East, right? As soon as they came along and they exist and we're backing them, suddenly all this trouble starts up. All these people are angry. All these wars are happening. And so, it's like they argue that it's like smashing a hornet's nest. But in reality, it's like someone stabbed a dagger. That's what Israel's shaped like a dagger, right into the heart of the Middle East. And then they've been fomenting this conflict since the 1950s. And if you read Albert Pike's Three World Wars, it's just another layer of the operation, right? Is to get the world to pick a side between political Zionism and religious Islam, right? You could parse those out to further different movements, but unifying them under those two kind of umbrellas, and then getting everyone to fight to the point of exhaustion. And it's a trap, right? It's just another form of paradigm, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And the synthesis is, if we can trick these people into hating each other and fighting for no reason, no good reason, then we can impose this new order of AI controlled, everyone's behavior is in one kind of homogenous way, and all our finances are tracked and controlled. So if we get out of line again, we don't want to have another third world war or another world war, then they can just, de-bank you, de-citizen you. And so we have to be looking at all these different events being arranged to try and get forth those measured push, because they want to centralize things and we want to decentralize things.
Yeah, definitely, man. So it's crazy, man, and so much of what I've learned about Israel, I learned from this show. Like, even before I had the honor of being a co-host, and now it's just been an unfolding saga. And Rich has definitely been one of the people I've looked to learn so much about what's going on over there. And it's crazy, man. And we got a whole section on it tonight, you guys. We got a whole section. But we do have a guest tonight. I forgot to intro our guest at the top of the show, or to preview our guest at the top of the show. He just showed up. He's my new buddy here in town. And we're going to bring him in, and hopefully Rich get here in time. But the great Seven C's. What's up, my man? What's going on?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I really appreciate you coming on. On somewhat short notice, but we met at the Third Eye Carnival last week. Super awesome event. He was on a panel with us, with Kurt and Sam and the whole crew. So that was really fun. But I guess for the listeners and viewers that aren't familiar, you want to give us a little intro, rundown what you've been up to and what you got going on?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I just started getting into the researching and reporting stuff in the middle of last year. Very quickly started doing all these different webs and stuff, talking about technocracy, people like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, how, technocracy was over 100 years ago, started as a movement, kind of lucked my way into catching the eye of David Icke, and did a 10-episode series on there, taking a little bit of a break to, build up different avenues of communication on different platforms and stuff with people. And now I'm just kind of doing my own thing and live streaming the web buildings that I do. I think Richard Grove does the brain, and mine's a little bit different, but it's sort of this way to get everybody involved. So smaller accounts can come into the chat and link sources and bring up different ties and stuff, and really just trying to get to the bottom of who's running everything, how to teach people. Because awareness and acknowledging the problem and how it's sort of started and caused, I think is always the first and most important step.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, that's really cool. I mean, so cool that you connected with the Ikes. You got your little show on there, dude. That's pretty legit. Pretty badass. Let's see. So yeah, obviously this audience is very familiar with the brain model, Richard's brain model here. I've got a little copy of it here. It's basic. Have you had a chance to look at it or look at it at all?
I've looked at it. The one problem that I have is there's no Linux version, so I can't get the full experience of it. But I have used the web browser, and it's incredible, man.
Sure. Yeah, and it's just one node leads to the next, kind of organized in different categories. So it's but I wanted to bring you on mostly to kind of just show us kind of how you've approached the same. You've got the similar thing going, and I was hopefully Rich will show up by the time. Well, while you're here, you guys can kind of chat and compare notes. But yeah, man, do you have a way to share your screen? I don't know if you're using OBS and have a separate screen share, or if you want to just pull it up on Zoom, you can do a screen share on there. But we'd love to see kind of what you've been working on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So it says that I can't.
Okay.
There it goes. Okay. So I use this program called Obsidian, and it's free. If you want to like sync it across devices, it's like $5 a month or something like that. But it's things like this. So I did start one specifically for like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. Got to move some stuff here. And basically, we just started with these 2 boxes. And then as we go, kind of color coding everything. So companies are green, people are in red, universities and things like that are in blue. We have like VC firms that I put in like a lighter blue. Events like World Trade Center 7, COVID, things like that are in white. And really just kind of mapping everything out and seeing who all the players are. As I go, I try to do my best to commit everything to memory. It's a little tough, but usually I'll be able to give a recap like at the end of each stream that I do. And we do all this stuff in real time, and everyone's allowed in the chat. But this is just one of the Peter Thiel, Elon Musk webs that I have here. You have like all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff up here at the top that I'm still sort of building out here. People like Brock Pierce, and then tying it all the way back to like Technocracy Inc. through Elon's grandfather, the New School for Social Research, and then you start getting into the Rockefellers and their sort of or like transformation, I guess, of the medical field and turning it into the medical industry that we have today. And just all different kinds of things. I mean, there's like the Lair House, all the way going all the way back to like the French Revolution and people like George Hegel and Frederick Holderman and Frederick Schelling. And I have one on them. This is the Trump administration that's also still not done. But just sort of mapping out everybody in the Trump administration and their various ties and stuff. It's a little difficult to see here, but like people like Christy Noam, she's pushing the Real ID right now, but she's also tied up in things like Future Fund. She's tied to Berkshire Hathaway. She has her own PAC called the Christie PAC, and John Ratcliffe. You have all the stuff from like the IP3 International scandal. I believe that's, right around here. You have like the fake influencer web through things like Colson Capital, like people like Steven Crowder, Andrew Tate, Laura Loomer, Russell Brand.
Tell me about Colson Capital a little bit.
Yeah. So Colson Capital, I actually have one that's a little more succinct here. So they have a bunch of different companies that basically provide sponsorships to different streamers, from things like 1775 Coffee to Positive. A lot of people might remember the time Laura Loomer ate dog food on her live stream. That was that company, and they basically paid her to do that, which is kind of crazy, because if they can get her to do that on camera on a live stream, imagine what she's doing off camera, And the fact that she's directly involved with the White House, and she's going in there and trying to tell Trump what to do, but it all rolls up into this thing called it's owned by this guy named Foster Colson, who's a partner on this company called International Health Brands with a guy named David Lopez, who is a special projects manager for Eric Prince's Blackwater. So it's like Blackwater, Eric Prince sort of have this, secret way to funnel money into different influencers and get them to, like, you notice all the same alt-right influencers all say the same thing. It almost seems like they copy and paste each other's posts sometimes on Twitter. They'll just all be speaking about the same talking points, but they own all kinds of companies.
So is it kind of like the equivalent how we've got George Soros's Open Society that leans more traditionally left and does their own version of astroturfing, right? Mm-hmm. That on the right, where it would be naive to think that there wasn't some kind of similar astroturfing campaign going on behalf of the billionaire tech bro Galopoly, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Tech bro Galopoly, dude.
Yeah, it like, I'm sure, are you guys familiar with like the wellness company and all the?
I was just going to bring them up to ask if they're related to these, because I see them funding everyone, even people I respect like Redacted. it's like wellness company stuff. And we run a YouTube channel with almost 500,000 subscribers. We get all these ads too, offers for sponsorship, and we just turn them all down because we're like, well, we don't know where this money is coming from.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be beholden to some third party that might have some other agenda and then be associated guilt by association style. So it's great that you're following the money essentially and charting it all out in something that looks like a 200-foot whiteboard that you can zoom in and out of. And then on that other one, you're kind of charting out the history of cybernetics and technocracy and these sort of techno-feudal warlords who are trying to create a new dark ages. What would you say is the logical conclusion for these guys beyond the digital ID, real ID, lockdown technocratic system?
I'm so glad that you asked. I actually have a web for that as well, and this is kind of my proposed in-game model, and I've added some stuff to it recently.
I want to jump in here real quick and just be on the record saying some stuff here. So it's important that I kind of chime in here because many people probably know that I have been involved with a company that was partnered with the wellness company, Unjected. You guys know Unjected. So Unjected was partnered with the wellness company. I resigned from Unjected about 3 weeks ago. I didn't feel like I was being treated very well. And so I resigned. It was my choice to leave the company. And I have lots of things I could say about the wellness company, but I do have NDAs in place and I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to discredit anybody, but I'm just saying I no longer am associated with them in any way, shape, or form. And I'm very grateful. I feel like a weight's been lifted off my shoulder. I personally can't recommend Unjected anymore. I'm just going to say that. So there you go.
That's a classy disclosure, Scott. So thank you for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, should I call you 7Cs or what's your first name again?
You can call me Seven. I decided to do that after someone showed up to Nick Fuentes' house with a gun.
Yeah. I've got my Chet system character, but yeah, I hear you on the pseudonym, but I'll just say Seven. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it, brother. So I have this technocratic in-game model that I've sort of mapped out here, and I'll give you guys the quick rundown. So I think that we're basically going to be falling into this model where you have this it's a Hivemind central computer, but it's going to be more like a cloud-based system where all of the data centers and stuff that we have all over the world are going to eventually be linked to each other. It's going to seemingly be built up country by country, especially seeing us in a race with China on the AI data center and things like that. But nuclear power is going to play a huge part. So just in the last 6 months, most of the major big tech companies have entered into the nuclear industry. You have Microsoft just bought 3 Mile Island back in September. Google is buying nuclear facilities all over. Amazon and Meta, and they're not the only ones. Elon Musk has also expressed interest in that. And they're going to use these nuclear facilities to specifically power their AI data centers. So all the data centers that are driving these different AI programs that are creating profiles on us and scanning everything and going through all the federal records. I've even seen some crazy stuff. This is why I use a green screen. Is they're now able to take the rooms pictured in people's houses and use AI to run it through Zillow and figure out where you live based on the pictures that are on the listing and stuff for your house. And then you have this global cloud that's going to be sort of like the brain that's all the different data centers that are things like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft's Azure global cloud. You have Google Cloud. Even here this was posted in February, that in Q4 2024, spending for infrastructure services has raised 20% from the previous year. You have Google that just gave their keynote the other day where they're doing Google Cloud Next, where they talked about incorporating a lot of AI and things like that. And then that's going to link with this thing called the Space Cloud, which is a series of satellites that are all being bought by big tech, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. Obviously, Elon is a big proponent of that. and partnering with different cellular companies and cell towers to create this sort of buffer between the satellites and the cell towers. So there's global coverage. I believe Elon just today announced that they now have Starlink connection in Somalia. And he is actively launching SpaceX Starshield satellites for the National Reconnaissance Office. And I'm essentially under the impression that what is being pitched as bringing internet to the world is they're trying to eliminate the hiding places. So you won't ever have anywhere that you can go that isn't connected to the internet, and you'll always be on, always connected. Yeah.
I believe they call those emerging markets, right? Where they just like, we need to connect every last person, get them onto the commerce system in general, and then, get them hooked up with a digital ID, get them into the track trace database. And essentially I always saw it as a setup to eventually measure consumption and essentially using the carbon tax on your carbon footprint so that there's a consumption tax so that the less you eat, the less money you pay, the more you eat, the more, kind of like the social credit score system, except meets Demolition Man. If you've seen Demolition Man in that society, something like that, except it probably won't appear as polite and friendly. It's probably a little bit more of the jackboot style. And so, do you think that's why a lot of these tech billionaires on the right have taken up the free speech mantle on the surface, but when push comes to shove, they all revert back to kissing the wall or what have you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's huge inspirations, especially in various books within the Kabbalah. You have the Tanya, which talks a lot about, it speaks to a lot of the like transhumanist stuff. You have the Zohar. I know most people know some of the worst things that are in the Talmud, and these are like the books that are I don't know what you would call it. I guess like believed in by the Chabad Lubavitch, the black hat guys that are in the ear of Trump and Putin and Zelensky and Malay, and basically all the ones that you see at the Wailing Wall.
Didn't Ursula von der Leyen just say that the Talmud is like a guiding principle document for the EU? Something like that? I'm pretty sure she's quoted saying that, and I was like quite surprised because I'm like, which part, lady?
Yeah, she did.
That's wild.
That was insane that they dropped that, because like everything that I've ever seen about the Talmud is talking about how terrible it is, and then they're like, well, this is going to be our guiding principle now, and
it seems to be like a lot of like, it's like the Torah in the center, and then all these like argumentation around getting around the rules, or just, I know a lot of it, I'm sure, is scholarly discussion of religious nature, but the rationalizations that come forth out of some of those are pretty horrific. Like they excuse some pretty bad behaviors, and I think that's why people associated with that gets like painted as like, what are you into? Like, I know the Christian Bible, the Quran, they all have some pretty messed up things in those as well, and not everyone takes them precisely literally. You know what I mean? Everyone interprets it kind of their own way, but you'd be lying if you said like there's not some horrific things in the Torah and in the Quran that are just like, that don't jive with today's day and age, right?
Yeah.
And so it's very strange to see that when you have Christian Zionism on the right teaming up or being almost wielded or weaponized under the guise of free speech, and it's really the pendulum, the left totalitarian pendulum is swinging back to the right, and when they're done with that on the right, they'll probably swing it back to the left. So you're just kind of documenting which part of the swing we're into and what's the bigger agenda at play. Because do you think we're a lot of people are sort of celebritizing or deifying some of these billionaires, thinking they're going to come save us, or the new president's going to come save us, and that's like a mind trap?
Yeah, it's honestly kind of concerning. The cognitive dissonance seems to have reached new levels. I thought that Trump was just going to be this Obama for the right, where the left was completely bought into everything that Obama was saying, and the hope and the change, and things are going to be different. And obviously we just got the same authoritarian, like, appeal to the bankers, appeal to big tech, appeal to authoritarianism. And now it just seems like what was rare with the Obama thing was a lot of people from the right didn't shift over to the left during his era. But it seems like I've seen quite a few people that, because the false dichotomy of Joe Biden being so terrible and Kamala being so terrible, that they were like, well, I have to pick the lesser of two evils, when I'm under the impression that the elections are a scam and they haven't been real, at least in my lifetime. And it's sort of that Hegelian idealism, or the Hegelian dialectic, that I think you were actually talking about, like the synthesis, the thesis, the antithesis, and then the synthesis.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that exact same thing, and I think Joe Biden's presidency was supposed to be as bad as it was, as publicly as it was, so that everyone would be courted into supporting Donald Trump, because there's this weird thing with their belief system where I think they have to manufacture consent within their operations. Otherwise, I don't know if these people are crazy. So I don't know if it's like an appeal to their God, or they feel like it has to work for their rituals or whatever sort of mind games that they're playing. But it seems like they more often than not have to get us to go along with whatever it is, and that's where all these narratives and false dichotomies and stories come from, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so funny because, like, there was a time you couldn't even breathe the word Trump online without just getting excoriated from every single direction. And now it's like, we're in this world now where it's like, I got like 3,600 followers on Twitter. I'm critical of Trump. I make fun of him a lot. I make fun of like Israel. Like, I just make fun of all this stuff and we just have a good time with it. I can get like one heart, maybe 2 hearts if I'm lucky. And it's like, I'm not complaining. It's just kind of hacky at this point to complain about your social media engagement. But at the same time, it's like the irony is like, if I were to be like full blown, just like slobbering all over Trump, it'd probably help my numbers quite a bit. Like, it's like now we're in an age and I'm being punished for being critical of Trump, dude. Like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah, man, you could get some sponsorships. Like, there's lots of incentives for us to sell out our integrity for some kind of like comfort or gain or whatever. But I agree with the philosophy of all power should be made fun of, because I personally think anyone who wants power over anyone else but themselves, that's a mental illness. Like, wanting to tell other people what to do and control them and control their behavior. And I just happen to trust humanity. I've been screwed over lots of times. I know there's bad people out there. But instead of like eliminating bad people completely, it's like learn how to recognize who's bad and avoid them or mitigate it or defend. And instead, worshiping power, worshiping other people as if they're going to save you like a superhero, it just seems like such an emotional trap. And at the end of the day, all these gangsters are just using storytelling to get us to hurt ourselves. At the end of the day, that's what their whole thing is, right? They want to use a storytell of a boogeyman. Every 10 years they change the boogeyman, and now we're our own boogeyman, and the only solution is to inject chips in us and track our behaviors so that we can no longer boogeyman ourselves.
Yep, no doubt about that. It's like, I almost want to invoke the rebunked card on this one, because during the election, like back when Biden was still running, I was like, you guys, I'm kind of rooting for Biden on this one, only because I saw what was going on right now. And then I pulled the same thing with Kamala too. I was like, look, you guys, here's what's going to happen. Trump's going to get in, and all of the patriots, all of the freedom fighters, all the people that were standing there at the lockdown protests and were actually legitimately in defense of human liberty worldwide and just activated, right? Myself being one of them. All of those people who were just the fiercest freedom fighters of them all are going to just bow down and worship the government again. That's exactly what you're going to get with Trump. And that's what we're seeing right now. So I'm like, damn, we probably would have been better off with Kamala, because all of these freedom fighters would be right in the government's face. Like, you aren't going to do shit. You hear me? So anyway, but now it's just like, where is everybody? I don't know. We're just like, there's a small contingent of us that watch this show and probably your show, Seven. Like, they're like, bro, no, all power, no government. What is going on, you guys?
Yeah, I agree. And Paul, to echo your sentiment too, I'm very against the state and authoritarianism. I think that we I've reached a point, especially in today's times, where there is the ability for people to self-govern, and the people that want to be in politics and want to be in government, they're there because, whether they're doing good things or not. I'll use Thomas Massey as an example. Yeah, the things he says sounds good, but inherently his career is imposing his political will on other people. And that is not okay with me, in my opinion.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Like all of them, right? Even the Paul father son team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, yeah. I mean, how do we even get to that? Like, what in your mind would be some steps towards actually achieving that?
Yeah, I think that building alternatives, especially networking locally, educating people is a huge part of it. I think it's a very, very drastic undertaking to finally manage to convince. They always say it's easier to dupe someone than to convince them that they've been duped. And I see the false, two-party dichotomy is this emotional roller coaster that is Santa Claus for adults. And it's only ever gone in the same direction as far as like a global one world government. So I think educating people and coming at it from a nonpartisan sort of perspective, like if you attack both sides, then what are people going to say? I get called a leftist all the time, and I'm like, look, if Joe Biden was still in office, I'd be doing his webs and his maps. And I think the first most important step that people can do is boycott as much as possible. Everything in this world is a market. It requires people's participation in order to succeed, and that includes government. And the less taxes that you can pay, if you can get away with paying no taxes, that's great. But I know property taxes are kind of a pain in that area. And just resist at every step. Big food is a huge part of it. So they war with us through our guts and our gut microbiome. So, working with local farmers, trying to put your money in those places, trade physical commodities, or use, I would love to get away from the physical cash and monetary systems. Little difficult to do overnight. But bartering is the only way to get that middleman out of the transactions, because they are always skimming a little off the top, going both ways. But especially digital currency. Like if you can find a way to stop using digital currency at all, educating people and getting them to realize that we don't need the systems that are in place that empower these different people, and just build those relationships over time. And even if it's just one person a day, it may seem like a drop in the bucket, but if there's enough people doing it, that eventually adds up to an ocean. And without us, they're powerless. So
yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea, is that we just form these little parallel economies, parallel systems, groups that eventually turn into like medium density groups, and then large density, and then we overpower the state.
Yeah.
That's like the idea. That's like the roadmap.
Everyone thinks that voting is their only power, and it's like not political voting, but voting with your time and energy and attention, right? Are you spending 8 hours a day at a job you don't like, 2 hours commuting, and then 3 hours watching Netflix when you get home to decompress from the day that you didn't, or you just, paid a third of what you earned to the tax man? Yeah, I echo what you said, Seven. Like, you gotta really figure out how to, I don't want to say decolonize your life, but the idea of like thinking about where you're putting your time, energy, money. Is it to corporations that don't have your best interest at heart and are really just trying to sell you poisons? Or is it to your local community farmer who's growing vegetables and cows and chickens that are actually from the earth? And then, yeah, where you're putting your attention, what kind of media are you consuming? Is it junk food media? Is it nourishing media? And ultimately, at the end of the day, disengaging from the people who want to impose power on you and looking only for political solutions. Because, yeah, we can raise a whole bunch of people and overthrow the state. But like Rich has said before, you can make the state obsolete by just drawing a parallel train track that's just more efficient, that's better. And the more people you have showing others how it can be done, that's what's inspiring even more than telling them how it can be done, is us like living that and practicing what we preach. And that's definitely easier said than done, but it all starts with the idea, right? And getting people together. I've seen Derek Bros talk about freedom cells. I've seen a few different people talk about just like communities of, I don't even want to just engage with like minds, because then it's an echo chamber. I want to challenge people, but in a respectful way, because if you can ask the right questions and get them to collapse their own belief system, they might come to the realization that you want on their own. And it's way more powerful because you didn't have to convince them. You just showed them the door and then they walk through it themselves.
Yeah, I love the idea of having conversations with people, and instead of, inundating them with, well, this is why you believe wrong, and this is why, this is a lie, asking them questions and guiding them getting them to work those like critical thinking cogs that have been dormant for so long, and say like, well, why do you think, what do you think is going to happen if they replace all of the bureaucrats in government with AI? Like, what do you see as like the worst case scenario with that, and getting them to have that realization? I'll say when I started doing this research and I finally like laid out a huge map, it was concerning Peter Thiel, but involved tons of other people given his history and influence and stuff. But I had a little bit of an existential crisis myself for a couple days, and I was like, oh, it's all fake. It's all fake. It's always been fake. They're on the same side, and I didn't know what to do. And then on the other side of that, I came out and I was like, I just have to tell everyone I know.
Congratulations, Neo. You've awakened from the Matrix. Welcome to the cognitive dissonance part, where before you learn all the kung fu. So, yeah.
I had to give a quick shout out in the chat. A guy, Mechanized Doom, just gave away 5 subscriptions to the Rumble channel to five, myself included. So thank you. So we're gonna do thank yous at the end, but I just wanted to say, hey, that's kind of cool. Didn't even know you could do such a thing. Shout out awesome. Mechanized Doom in the chat. So there you go.
I love that.
Anyway, support and putting your money where your mouth is, folks. Yeah, if you get value out of this show, it's value for value. Become a member, donate. Like, that's really cool stuff. And yeah, very cool. See, there you go. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Like, bringing community together, and then having in-group preference and doing commerce in and amongst your people, and extracting resources from the outside world, pulling it into your community, having it go around and around. Like, that's something I talk about constantly. That's my big message of hope, is literally this, what we're talking about right here. Having strong local communities is something I put a lot of effort and time into. And then just being of service to your local community. That's where I find where I'm at. It's like, I do handyman work, and it's a lot of my work comes from people I've met in my local community here, or word of mouth from them. So I've been able to find, I'm able to support myself and my own autonomy through doing that. And yeah, I just love it. It's really, that's the solution. That is the solution. And then we keep growing. We just keep growing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Everyone has their part to play, and everyone's going to have like different roles and stuff. I see a lot of people that look at like the work that I do, or people like Derek Bros, Ryan Christian, the stuff that you guys are doing here, and they're like, well, I can't do this. And it's like, well, what do you want to do? You can do anything. And it's the limitations that society and the powers that be have put on people that make them feel like they have to be dependent on the state and their infrastructure and their systems.
Yeah, that's really the power that's awakening in people, I think, is the spirit of autodidactism, where, as expensive as things like food and rent have gotten, the technology to have your voice heard has never been more affordable and more professional and more professionally available. And then the ability to learn any of these subjects, thanks to YouTube and these other things that are potential propaganda platforms, they also serve simultaneously as education platforms to help people become more proficient in improving their rhetoric, in improving their communication and presentation, so that, like, yeah, if you're working with David Icke, he's a guy who figured out his, production value and the value of production value to get the message across in a more credible way. So that I think that's why part of why we've seen the Overton window sort of shift to being more open-minded to conspiracy stuff is not just because of the failure of experts and all their horrible tragedy things we've seen in the last 5, 10, 20 years, but people stepping up and being able to produce a cogent, cohesive message that actually makes sense. Because, it's called InfoWars because really what it is narrative wars, right? It's their story versus our story. And what we're trying to do is get to the truth. And the truth shouldn't have to be believed. It should just be self-evident once we uncover enough stuff, right? Meanwhile, these other people claiming to be trying to get to the truth have agendas, have sponsorships, have all these things that induce them to sort of water down or obscure or obfuscate or omit certain things that would be, difficult to swallow or challenge certain narratives. So, yeah, I think it's really admirable that when you see people that are going for the truth, not left truth or right truth, but like whatever it is, and emotionally I can handle it. Like it might be mind blowing. We might go through all these periods of like, I can't believe it turns out it's gangsters have been running things for 6,000 years. Okay, that's what the Matrix is really about. That's actually not as like bad as you think, because if it's gangsters and this is a prison, like for better or for worse, it's a pretty comfortable prison. It's just we know we can do better, and we know that it's going to get much more uncomfortable as they modernize the prison. So we need to, start building these parallel systems, continue to put our energy into worthwhile, productive, and constructive things. And like you said, you don't have to wake someone up by bludgeoning them over the head. You can tickle them awake. You can question them awake. There's so many avenues that don't result in you getting a fight with your neighbor or having the divide and conquer mechanism. You don't want to be feeding into it. So I think that's going to be the future of the next 10 years is finding even more constructive ways to communicate this message, continue to point to the things that are the hypocrisies and the obvious conspiracies. And then, we need to be prepared to organize in a constructive manner, because even amongst the freedom community, there's going to be stronger personalities that rise up and want to lead. And then it's like, and then we have to question, what's their agenda? What do they do? You know what I mean? And that's the cycle, because we're trying to prevent a new gangster class from arising in the new system that we set up.
Yeah, for sure. I always make it a point to tell people, like, the same way you're not supposed to attack the messenger or shoot the messenger, you also shouldn't worship the messenger. And that people are malleable, they fluctuate, they have their own biases, they could be incorrect about things. And really the information is what should always be the key and the star of the show. And, I see talking heads like obviously Alex Jones and people like that, where the name brings about this trust that used to need to be earned. And now it just seems like, well, if they just say a couple things to solidify someone's confirmation bias instead of challenging, popular opinions and popular narratives, then that's enough, and people will just believe anything that they say.
That is very true. And I think it's ironic. Like, you're talking about exposing Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, these other tech bro guys. And, here in Canada, we're having protests of people showing up to Tesla dealerships. Down with Elon Musk. We hate him. But kind of like for the completely wrong reasons. Like, you want to go there and be like, I understand what you're doing in spirit, but like, here's the actual facts that you're actually criticizing thing that for better or for worse could be, we'll see if they slash all these things, but here's this other side to things. And then you'll see this cognitive dissonance because they want to agree with you about not trusting Elon, but then they're like, that's also sounds like right-wing conspiracy nonsense. And you're like, okay, well, the enemy of my enemy, or how does this work? And it's really just about finding people who aren't completely rigid and set in their ways. You can always tell when someone's a little open-minded. They might not have formed an opinion yet. And those are what the people you want to ask those questions like and kind of guide them to. It's really logical conclusions when you have enough detailed knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It reminds me a lot of the people that were just calling Trump, Hitler during the 2016 election just because, he said things that they didn't like and stuff, but weren't pointing to the very, very problematic things that were, like the Adelson funding, the Thiel funding, the Abraham Accords in Israel, the IP3 international nuclear scandal with like Jared Kushner and Michael Flynn, where Trump was essentially trying to export nuclear energy to places like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, while meanwhile domestically, whether it's manufactured or not, we're having an energy crisis.
That's a really good point. Well, a lot of these crises we know are manufactured. And part of this is like the crisis that they're trying to manufacture right now is the trade wars, the tariffs, all the different setups of, I would argue, artificial conflict, because it's all like, they say it's about making money and which country's earning more from their trade deficits, but it really comes down to jobs and people being able to earn a living and companies looking for justifications to lay off a bunch of people that they wanted to anyway. And so, Scott, I don't know when we want to get to this next media block, but I saw that you had the heading of trade wars there. And I inserted a great 3-minute little video about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and the analogy of the Trade Federation and that whole trade blockade and how it applies, ironically, to right now, what's going on.
Well, I mean, dude, Seven, man, you're like the new Richard, dude. You got your brain model and everything. Like, so you're like the new Richard here on this episode. So if you want, you can hang out with us. We can play a media block and come back and do commentary with us if you want. Just kind of just ride along with us as long as you want to. Open invitation, stay as long as you want, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I set aside a couple hours. I didn't know how long you guys are willing to have me, but if you get me talking, man, I'll talk all day.
Totally. Well, we'll be here till probably about 3 a.m. Central.
All right.
So you're welcome to stay as long as you want, dude, and just kind of like chime in.
Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come